Alrighty, traders, welcome to our weekly outlook. Thank you guys for joining me today. You'll notice it is once again Monday. I decided to do the weekly outlook today. I had some things come up yesterday, so we're jumping into it today. I hope you guys all had a great weekend. As most of you guys probably noticed too, it is a new month, so new trading month. It's pretty crazy. It's already May of 2019. It's pretty crazy how fast this year is going, but I'm excited to get into things, guys, today. Let's go ahead and just jump right into things. As usual, if you have any questions, if you're watching this live or even watching the recording, feel free to leave a comment and I will make sure to get back to them for you. But I'm going to give you guys a clear bias today. I have a couple pairs marked off over here. You can see on the right hand side of my screen, and I'm going to be going over all of these pairs. And then if you guys want to see any additional pairs, let me know in the comments, in the chat. But other than that, let's go ahead and jump into things. So first things first, economic calendar. This is a pretty busy week as in terms of the economic calendar goes. We have a couple interest rate decisions. We have a couple heads of central banks speaking. Just a lot of high impact news. So just getting right into it. Actually, this evening, well, it depends on where you are right now. So for me, it's 5 p.m. right now. So this evening, in about 4 hours from right now, we're going to have an interest rate decision from the Reserve Bank of Australia, the Australian dollar, come out. So definitely be aware of that. They are actually looking at cutting interest rates. And if you guys have been following along with anything related to the Australian dollar, it's been very blatantly clear that the Australian dollar has been basically expecting a cut. We've actually been looking at that since the end of last year. So just to give you guys a little bit of a timeline, if you haven't been really following the RBA, basically middle of last year they were actually looking at raising interest rates. They said that the next time they changed interest rates, it would probably be up, and then as a hike rather than a cut. And then towards the end of last year, so end of 2018, we found out that they started to, obviously the numbers started coming out. We started looking at like GDP and CPI and things like that. We also started looking at numbers from China, and the RBA changed their outlook from pretty much bullish to a bearish outlook. They said that they're probably going to be looking at cutting interest rates, and now here we are, right? May 6th, tomorrow, or I guess I'm sorry, that's today. Now here we are, right? Everything that we've been looking at and everything that we've been following along with the RBA is coming to fruition, and they are expected to cut the interest rate decision, or the interest rates, so the overnight rate from the RBA. Now, what does that mean for the charts? So, I usually like partition my webinars. I usually do the economic calendar and then do the charts, but I think that this is relevant. So just to kind of look at a lot of the AUD pairs, it's pretty simple. We can most likely expect an immediate sell-off on the Australian dollar. Okay, that's pretty much most likely going to be the reaction. Now, that doesn't mean go and over leverage a short on like AUD USD just because they're cutting interest rates. All right, pretty much, as you know, and I think I made this clear last week also, that I don't use the economic calendar as a tool to help me to place trades. Okay, I am not a proponent of news trading. Okay, I don't recommend news trading. I use the economic calendar to know when there's going to be volatility in the market, because pretty much at the end of the day, the economic calendar and these high impact news events that come out is simply an excuse for market makers to move the market in any direction they want. And actually, just to kind of illustrate my point, a perfect example that I want to recap before we go any further is NFP from last week. Okay, everybody knows about NFP. Okay, everybody's always like, oh, NFP, because it's very consistent. It comes out the first Friday of every month, of every year. It's the most consistent, high impact news pretty much that comes out for the US dollar. And if you guys notice, on Friday, It came out pretty good, with the exception of average hourly earnings missing just a little bit. Okay, it came out at 0.2% versus the 0.3%. We saw the actual number of 263K come out and crush the expectations, okay, of 181K. So almost 100,000 more jobs than what was forecasted. And then the unemployment rate dropped to a multi-year low. We actually haven't seen unemployment rates this low in over 10 years in the US. Okay, so it went from 3.8%, which it was forecasted not to move, down to 3.6. So it went even lower. So pretty much an overall generally good NFP for the US dollar. But if we go and look at, let's say, something like the dollar index on Friday, this is actually right here. This candle, I know you guys can't draw because I'm using YouTube now to do these lives, but hopefully you can see where my cursor is. This is the initial reaction to non-farm payrolls. Okay, is that there is actually a sell-off on the dollar. Okay, and this is why this is just a perfect example of why I don't trade the news. Okay, because you do something like that, you over leverage, let's say you were trying to, let's say you were trying to sell Euro USD, right? Because you see the news comes out, you're expecting Euro USD to drop because you're expecting the US dollar to strengthen, and then look at that. You take a sell right at the bottom right there. So you have to be very, very careful, okay? And it's not even a joke, guys. Like I literally see, I'm in Facebook groups and I see people like complaining about like losing money or blowing their accounts on farm payrolls, and I'm like, I try to tell you guys, don't use the economic calendar as something to place trades. Don't place trades based off of that, okay? The only reason, like I said, the only reason I go over the economic calendar on these outlooks for you guys, and even with my students on a day-to-day basis, is just to show you when to expect volatility for the next day, right? I encourage every single one of you guys should be, have this open on your end, on your laptop or whatever, and you should have it set to your time zone and just know when things are coming out, okay? So interest rate decision in just a couple of hours, okay? And then there's some other things too. There's some retail sales and whatnot. So the next couple hours are going to get pretty volatile for the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar, okay? And then tomorrow, right after the Australian dollar interest rate decision, we're going to see the Reserve Bank of New Zealand for the New Zealand dollar have an interest rate decision, all right? Now, they are not expected to change interest rates. Now, they may follow suit with not this time, but maybe like the next round, when they might decide to cut it. But obviously, we're going to look at like the statement and see what happens. But being that the Australia and New Zealand are so heavily correlated to each other, I wouldn't be surprised if we see NZD cut interest rates soon. Okay, so that's coming over. That's in the next 48 hours. So 2 interest rate decisions in the next 48 hours. That already is a lot of volatility right there. And then Thursday, we have Mr. Powell speaking from the Federal Reserve. All right. Now, this is going to create some volatility there's a lot of news coming out at one time. All right. Not only is he speaking, there's some PPI coming out for the US dollar. And there's also some trade balance for the Canadian dollar, okay? And I'll give you guys my opinion in just a moment of what I think the US dollar is going to do, okay? And then there's some other red folders, okay? I'm not going to go over every single one of these things, but just keep in mind, guys, like Friday is also busy. We've got a lot of stuff for the pound. We've got a lot of stuff for the Canadian dollar. We've got some more stuff for the US dollar, okay? So another volatile week, right? Just coming off of last week being very volatile as well. It's a very volatile week to start. First 2 weeks of May it seems to be pretty volatile, okay? Because last week was pretty volatile. We saw, now the markets didn't really trend too much. We're going to look at just in just a moment, but there was still a lot of news, a lot of red folders last week, right? We had interest rate decision from the Federal Reserve come out last week. All right, we had interest rate decision. So we had 2 interest rate decisions last week as well. We had an interest rate decision for the US dollar, interest rate decision for the pound, and then we had non-farm payroll on Friday, okay? So another volatile week. Expect some movement, okay? But let's get into the charts. Let's get into the juicy stuff. I know this is the stuff you guys want to know, want to get into. Let's see in the chat too. Enrique says, much love, bro, for all you do. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I definitely appreciate for tuning in. Also, by the way, please do me a favor. Pause everything, what you're doing right now, and smash the like button. If you guys are watching this, please press that like button. It really helps me out. We crushed it last week, guys. I think we almost had like almost 40 or 50 likes on last week's Outlook. It was pretty phenomenal. So please, guys, make sure you like this. And Luke, you asked GBP AUD when we get a chance. Okay, I will pull up GBP AUD when we are all done here, okay? So where is my bias for this week? Well, let's just very quickly do a recap of last week and kind of see what I said last week. So if you were on last week's Outlook, I said I was bearish on the dollar, okay? I said that I'm long-term bullish, okay? So long-term meaning in the next couple weeks, maybe as soon as the next couple weeks, but probably more so in the next couple months, we'll see the dollar break out of this inverted head and shoulders that we've been talking about for literally months and months now. Like this inverted head and shoulders has been here since last year. Okay, we've recognized this, that it's been here. I don't think it's going to break yet. I'm still expecting short-term downside. And so you can see this is the weekly chart. Okay, so this candle right here that my cursor is over right now is last week's candle. So we can obviously see that my call from last week was correct. So with me last week expecting the dollar index to drop, which it did, I expected Euro USD to rise, which it did. Now, everything got pretty volatile last week, but my initial move from last week happened. So you can see on the dollar index. So this is the daily chart, right? So you can see obviously these two daily candles that we can see on the chart right now is this week. So 5 candles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this candle where my cursor is over right now is the start of last week. All right, now I didn't do last week's Outlook until Monday. So this red candle, this is the biggest, actually this isn't the biggest, Friday's candle is the biggest red candle, but this large red candle from Monday is when I did the weekly Outlook last week, and I said that the dollar index would drop. So we can see going into Tuesday, dollar index dropped, and then dollar index rose. It's a little bit easier to see on the 4-hour too, okay? So this is the dollar index from last week. After the Outlook, when I said the dollar index would drop, it did drop and then proceeded to rise, and then now it's coming back down. In my opinion, this is a very strong. Just keep in mind, guys, also that when I'm doing this Outlook, that it is mostly technical based. Okay, we're gonna go over the fundamentals, and there's times that I'm gonna be heavily speaking on the fundamentals, but keep in mind that this is my technical outlook, okay? So my technical outlook is that the dollar index has made a little bit of a top. We can see that that's actually pretty clear from last week. The fact that after the outlook, we saw a significant drop. We tried to actually recover, okay, towards the end of last week. We can see, and then of course, this is non-farm payrolls. So we tried to recover. We started heading back up towards the highs, and then very end of last week we pushed lower, and you can actually see, look at the dollar index right now, and you can see it's got a nice little bit of a bear flag going on. Okay, it's got the drop from the end of Friday, and then it's got just this week, which there's literally been like no movement on the dollar index. So I am, if it's not clear enough, just it is on the record now that I am bearish again this week for the dollar index, okay? I think it's going to go back. It's probably going to break last week's lows, all right? So if you mark off where last week's low on the dollar index is, which is 97.15, I think we're going to break 97.15 or at least get back down to that area this week, okay? All right. So I am looking for sells on the US dollar. So what does that mean, right? Because I don't usually trade, I don't usually place actual trades on the dollar index itself. I prefer to trade the correlation, which is Euro USD. All right, so I am bullish on Euro USD. And again, just a bit of a recap from last week. So if you guys can see where my cursor is, right around here is where last week's outlook was when I called Euro USD would continue going higher. That it did. And then it got volatile towards the end of last week. It moved back down, and then it just kind of is pretty much actually where we were at the beginning of last week. but it did initially make that move up higher. And I think Euro USD is going to continue moving up higher. Okay, so same thing as the opposite of the dollar index. It's showing a really nice sign of bottoming because we can see last week, it did travel up higher like I was expecting, and then towards the end of last week, Euro USD, if you're following where my cursor is, Euro USD pushed lower. It looked like it was going to get back and retest these lows, and then we can see it recovered, and then it's, the dollar index has that bear flag on the 4-hour. Euro USD has this bit of a bull flag going on. Okay, it's both are sitting at the weekly pivot points also, so you can see weekly pivot point Euro USD, weekly pivot point on the dollar index. Okay, so I'm expecting dollar index to drop, Euro USD to rise this week. USD Swiss franc, I'm pretty happy with how USD Swiss franc played out. This pair I spent the most amount of time on. So if any of you guys are, maybe this is your first time watching one of my weekly outlooks and you want to pick my brain a little bit more, because every weekly outlook is different. Sometimes I go super in depth on something, or I'm able to, I don't know, I do literally I do one every single week. So I do 50 of these a year, and I've been doing these weekly outlooks for a couple of years now. So I've done hundreds of these weekly outlooks. So everyone is going to go different. But last week I did a bit of education of exactly spent like a solid 10 to 15 minutes or maybe more on just this pair here on USD Swiss franc, and I explained why I thought that it was going to drop last week. And at the time, if you're looking at where my cursor is, I'm just going to use this orange box for illustrative purposes. At the time of last week's webinar, we were like right in this area. Okay, right where this little orange box is. And I called downside. I explained downside. These green boxes are relevant to the reversal patterns that I was describing last week. And USD Swiss franc, we actually marked off our target. This lower orange box to the left described why I was targeting these lows. We were expecting it to go just below the support of these previous highs, which is marked off by this lower dotted red line, which we can see this literally played out perfectly, like to a T, literally almost to the pip, exactly where we wanted it to go. And then you can see the aftermath of end of last week. USD Swiss franc recovered back up to the highs, and then it's still at the highs currently. Okay, it's still consolidating, but naturally, with me expecting the dollar index to keep dropping this week and Euro USD to keep going higher, I'm expecting USD Swiss franc to move lower as well. Okay, so I think that this correction on USD Swiss franc, this correction that we almost this like month-long uptrend that we had, I think is still going to correct. Okay, so these are the setups that I'm looking at for the week. Dollar yen, also another setup that went, guys, we are like every single setup that I looked at last week worked out perfectly. All right, dollar yen, same thing. Last week I called downside on dollar yen because my bias has not changed from last week, guys. If you watched last week's outlook, I said I was short on the dollar, US dollar, and so all of the pairs that we've looked at right now are all in correlation to a negative or to a bearish dollar. All right, so it's just correlations, guys. That's how I know that all these pairs are going to do what they're going to do, is because when you have a very strong bias on one specific pair, or maybe even like two pairs that match their negative correlation really well, then you kind of have an idea what the rest of the market is going to do. All right, I tell you guys all the time how much that I put such an importance on correlations, guys. If you don't know correlations, learn them. All right, and they are not very hard to learn either. Okay. But dollar yen I called last week moving lower, and I think this week it's going to continue. It's going to move lower as well. All right, it's already made. Now your chart may look a little bit different. I've seen some brokers, actually the broker that I trade with, FX Choice, because I just use this chart to do all my charting on TradingView, but I actually trade on FX Choice on their MetaTrader 4, and my chart actually shows a gap. So and I'm sure most of you guys probably see a gap also. Some of you guys might just see a downtrend, but so basically this is just like the move from the weekend, and I'm going to expect dollar yen to continue dropping this week. Okay, I'm going to expect with dollar weakness that this pair will move lower as well. Okay, so that's all of my pairs that I'm interested in trading. I'll get to that chat in just a moment. There's one last thing that I want to look at, guys, because the end of last week, I apologize. Also, the end of last week, I just completely blanked and forgot to do oil, even though I had it marked off on the chart. I just ended last week's outlook and forgot to do oil. But if you're in the Telegram, by the way, if you're not in the Telegram, there's a link in the description of this video that you can join my free Telegram. But in that free Telegram yesterday, or in that free Telegram last week, I'm sorry, I posted this chart. Okay, I took this screenshot. It was at the beginning of last week. You can actually see, if you can see where my cursor is, it is time stamped. It says April 29th. So this was last week, the end of last month. Okay, last week. So literally 7 days ago. And I drew up this, and I said that oil would drop. Okay, that my expectations was oil dropping. And if we look at oil, here is, well, this is the daily chart. Okay, so you can actually see, I mean, here's the 4 hour of it, right? Here's the 4 hour. I have not moved this, guys. I obviously there's the proof right there. I have not moved this arrow at all, but there it is on the weekly. Okay, you can see it hit where we wanted to, which initially I was expecting it to go to this area, not because of the 50% retracement, that this actually has nothing to do with it, but it's more so the 50 EMA that we have right here. So this line, this moving average that we have, I was expecting us to hit that area. And so it's a little bit difficult to see. Actually, there we go. I had just, with all the markings, it was a little bit difficult to see, but you can see it did make its way lower. Keep in mind that's the weekly, okay? So it doesn't look like a lot of movement, but this is the 4 hour, okay? After last week's outlook, we saw oil drop very, very nicely lower, okay? I am so, this is just some random commentary, just kind of just saying what's on my mind, that I am very, like, happy trading oil. Some of you guys may know that I personally have actually never placed a physical trade on oil. I've never capitalized on the movement of oil. I go over it so much, and it's because, when, guys, like, I treat trading like a business. Okay, like I'm actually almost, I'm not intimidated anymore. Like, I actually almost took a trade on oil last week myself. But for a very long time, like, I refused to trade it. I wanted to look at it and learn it, but I refused to actually trade it. But now I'm getting to the point where I'm actually going to start trading it. But yeah, it's been literally a multi-year process. Like, I think going on maybe 2 or 3 years now that I've just analyzed and sat on the sidelines and watched oil. So it's pretty crazy how patient I've been. So if that kind of gives you any type of idea of how I treat trading in general, of how patient I am of a trader, that it's taken me multiple years just to even be willing to place a trade on a pair, rather than a couple days, or a couple weeks or a couple months. That's in my entire mindset with trading, guys. Like, I just have a whole different mindset than most people do with trading. It's like, I'm here. I was telling my students last week, or maybe I even said it on the weekly outlook, that one of the most powerful quotes that I think can be related to trading is that most people overestimate what they can do in 1 to 2 years, and they underestimate what they can do in 5 to 10 years. I'm not here playing the 1 to 2, 1, 2, 3 year game. I've already been here for 4 or 5 years trading, guys. I've been running my business for over 3 years now. Actually, literally today, like yesterday, Cinco de Mayo is actually 3 years exactly that I've been running Positive Traders. So, and then obviously I was trading almost 3 years before that. So it's been a multi-year process. I'm here for the multi-decade gains. I'm not here for the 1-2 year gains. All right. So where do I stand with oil for this week? Oil is probably going to continue to find some downside this week, but I'm not interested in trading it. Okay, I'm back. I'm just neutral on oil. We can actually extend this. All right, the lows that it took out last week, it actually just kind of took out these lows and then just recovered back above the support. So I'm not necessarily convinced that oil is going to keep going lower this week. We actually might see oil move higher. Obviously, oil has been extremely bullish since the initial correction at the end of last year, beginning of this year. Okay, so I'm going to be on the sidelines with oil. I really just had it marked off because I really wanted to not forget to recap it, okay? So some of you guys that follow me, and I just want to make that very clear, guys. Like, I am not a hype trader, okay? Like, if you guys are looking for a group or somebody to literally carry your hand and tell you every single thing, like, well, I mean, I do that for my students, right? But my students pay for that, right? I'm in my free group, guys, and on these outlooks, I'm here to help you guys. Okay, so I'm here to give you guys trade ideas, and I look at the larger picture of things. Okay, so just I'm trying to, I want to add as much value as I can to your guys' trades, but I also want you guys to be learning at the same time. Okay, so last week, perfect example, right? I posted this chart. You guys could have capitalized on this, right? I marked off, I tell you where I'm expecting price to go, and then it's your job on the lower time frames or even the higher time frames. It's just your job to figure out your entry. Okay, it's your job to use your strategy and to go through whatever your process you have to take an entry. Okay, for my students, I'll tell you guys when to get in. All right. But that's my opinion for the week. I'll go to the chat real quick. I know there's a couple things. Also, I meant to mark this off, guys. Gold also. I think gold will see some upside this week, okay? Gold's actually making a little bit of a double bottom. You can see it really nicely here on the daily. This green zone marks off a little bit of a demand area for gold also, which we can see is being respected, okay? There's that demand there. So we could see if this support or if this resistance breaks, guys, all right, if the highs of last week break on gold, we'll probably see 1300, okay? Moving from 1290 to 1300. I mean, a $10 on oil, that's no problem. That's a piece of cake, right? We could see $10 move in like a 12-hour period, no, or less than that, honestly. All right, so let's get in the chat very quickly. Okay. So, Luke, you wanted to see pound AUD. So, GBP AUD. Let's go ahead and we'll take a look at this. Let's pull up the Oanda one. GBP AUD. GBP AUD. Okay. Okay. So, without even looking at this pair, at all. Okay, I mean, initially before I even looked at this pair, I was going to say that I am bullish also on pound dollar this week. Okay, I actually told my students yesterday that pound dollar would correct lower and then ultimately go higher this week. So I think pound dollar is going to continue moving up higher. So I'm actually bullish on the pound right now. But also keep in mind the big thing if we're looking at anything related to the Australian dollar, Luke, is that we have the interest rate decision in a couple hours and they're going to be cutting interest rates, okay? Or at least it's pretty much expected that they're going to cut interest rates, okay? So what that means is we can pretty much expect Australian dollar weakness. So we should see pound AUD continue moving up higher, okay? Australian dollar weakness, this pair should continue moving up higher. All right. Ashley says you love these outlooks. Thank you very much, Ashley. I appreciate the support. It really means a lot. Thank you, guys. Are there any experienced Forex traders who are interested in mentoring a young college student in California? Well, I mean, you're talking to a mentor right here. So I have contact information. My social media information is in the description below, and you can reach out to me. I have couple hundred students that I teach on a daily basis. Top Grant says, I'm looking to become a student with Positive Traders. How would I go about enrolling? So guys, I am working on rebuilding an entire website. I am working on a whole bunch of things for Positive Traders right now. I'm so excited to kind of move into these summer months and start like releasing a couple of the projects that we've been working on, but because there's no website or any like official place to enroll right now, just go ahead and shoot me a message on social media. Like I was saying, all of my information is in the description below. Probably best way to get a hold of me is probably through either Telegram, just messaging me through Telegram, or Instagram. Those are probably the best two ways to get a hold of me. And Drew, you says Euro Yen, happy anniversary with your business. Thank you very much, Drew. And absolutely, we can take a look at Euro Yen. Um, Euro Yen. So Euro Yen. So a lot of these pairs, okay, it's not just Euro Yen. We look at Euro Yen, we look at AUD Yen also. Okay, I know these pairs already like the back of my hand because I look at them on a regular basis. I'm really not too sorry to disappoint you, Drew, but I'm not really too interested in trading either of these pairs right now because of how they're ranging. You can see the range. Like, let's take Euro Yen for example, the one that you want some feedback on. We can actually see since the year is started. Okay, this is the year start. Actually, the flash crash marks off the beginning of the year. You can see we've just been ranging sideways. Okay, and I did have a long term outlook on Euro Yen initially. All right, back in like January February, I was initially looking at taking like a long-term swing sell on Euro Yen, and I was expecting this correction to move lower. Obviously, we can see that the consolidation got a little bit complex at these lows. So, that long-term outlook for Euro Yen, continuing to correct lower, like going down to like 120 or even maybe sub 120, like 119, 118, that analysis or that outlook I don't think is invalidated, or is definitely not invalidated yet, because we're still consolidating. All right, but until, really, in my opinion, until we break out of this range, I'm not really interested in touching Euro Yen. Okay, because then you have to deal with the trading or deal with a swap, a potentially negative swap. But yeah, I would just be monitoring Euro Yen. I'm not interested in trading it right now. Ashley said, "What are the indexes to look at for the pound or euro to get a bias, or is everything based off of the dollar index?" So okay, no. So the dollar index, I look at the dollar index specifically because I care about the US dollar more than any other currency for the most part, because the US dollar makes up over 50% of the volume in the market. Okay, so if you know what the US dollar is doing, you have a pretty good idea of what the rest of the market is doing. In the dollar index, right? Just like any index, it's weighted, and the dollar index is weighted against 6 other currencies. All right? And the biggest weight, or the currency that takes up the most amount of that weight, is the euro. All right? So, the euro makes up, just like the dollar index is, or just like the US dollar is over 50% of volume in the market, the euro makes up over 50% of the weight on the dollar index. All right, so it's about 57% that the euro is weighted. That's why the euro USD, why that pair has an exact negative correlation to the dollar index, because inevitably whatever is happening to the euro, like if the euro USD is going up, then the dollar index has to go down because of the weight of the correlation to the euro. I don't remember all the other. I can do DAXI weight. DAXI weights very quickly. Euro is 57%. Okay, because I don't remember all the other currencies off the top of my head. So we have the Japanese yen, which, so you can see actually right here. Look at the drop. Look at the difference. All right, so you have the euro, which makes up 57, almost 58% of the weight. And then the next like strongest thing is the Japanese yen. And that's why, let's say when you look at something like USD, dollar yen, okay, USD JPY, they have a pretty positive correlation, but it's not nearly as strong as the correlation as euro USD is, or else they'd be negative. Okay, and then you can see it goes all the way down. But to answer your question, Ashley, or hopefully that kind of indirectly answered your question, for other currencies in particular, there's actually somebody that commented, and I'd actually like for that person, if you're listening to this person, if you're the person that commented, if you're listening to this right now, somebody commented that they know of indexes for other currencies. I personally, to my knowledge, I just don't look at the other ones, because it's like I look at the dollar index, okay? and I already know what the Euro USD is doing, okay? And if I know what Euro USD is doing, I know what USD Swiss franc is doing, okay? And if I know what USD, if I know what, pretty much, what I'm trying to say, if I know what the dollar index is doing, all of the other pairs that are relevant to me, I know what the rest are doing, okay? I mean, and you can look at things like the stock market, okay? You can look at like the stock market indices, such as like the Dow or um, the S&P 500, all right? And that also can help you correlate Forex trades as well, all right? But specifically other indexes that are weighted for other currencies, I don't use personally. All right, G says, thanks, gotta go. Video, awesome video. Okay, no problem. No problem, guys. But guys, I think that's gonna wrap up today. I think I've answered you guys' questions, and I've given you guys a very clear bias. So, yeah, guys, you guys have a very, very clear opinion of what I think is gonna happen. Okay, dollar weakness this week. So Euro USD buys are still valid. Dollar Swiss franc sells are still valid. Dollar yen sells are still valid. And then I'm on the sidelines with oil. Okay. And then also gold buys are valid also. Okay. So that'll do it for the week, traders. Once again, please, if you have made it to this point in the video, please smash that like button if you have not already. Your guys' support is, it means the world to me, and I appreciate you guys. Your guys' support is what drives me to continue doing these these weekly outlooks for you guys. So, I appreciate you guys, everybody. I will see you next week. Students, I'll see you guys on the next daily webinar. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next weekly outlook. So take care, traders, and have a great week trading.